Hello everyone, I'm Anna Tarnawska. Welcome to the Kosciuszko Foundation's Impromptu Series. Our today's guest is one of the most versatile contemporary artists, Lech Majewski.
Lech Majewski is a poet, painter, media artist, writer, and director. Working internationally, he builds his visions in his films, installations, novels, theater, and opera stagings. He studied at Krakow Academy of Fine Arts and graduated from the National Film School in Łódź, Poland. His credits include such films as The Night, Prisoner of Rio, Basquiat, Wojciech, Angelus, The Garden of Earthly Delights, Glass Lips, The Mill and the Cross, and Onitica. His video, film, and artworks have been shown in a variety of galleries and museums around the world. The Museum of Modern Art in New York honored him with a special retrospective entitled Lech Majewski, Conjuring the Moving Image. Majewski lectures on the hidden language of symbols at various schools and universities, including Canterbury University, Harvard, Berkeley, London Film School, Bologna University, and the Academy of Fine Arts in Rome. His latest movie, the surrealist drama Valley of the Gods, was finished last year. It stars some of the most acclaimed actors, including Josh Hartnett, John Malkovich, Berenice Merlot, Keir Dullea, and John Rhys Davies. The movie is set to be released on digital platforms on August 11. Currently, Majewski is working on his new drama, Brigitte Bardot the Wonderful, that is based on his novel of the same title.
Hello and thank you very much for accepting our invitation. We were supposed to meet with you in person at the Kosciuszko Foundation annual ball, but the coronavirus pandemic made it impossible. So I'm very happy that at least we can connect with you today through this video call and see how are you doing.
Well, surviving. Hello, how are you? I mean, yes, I was supposed to be in New York, but also for the opening of my movie, my new movie. But as you know, everybody is stranded around the world. We are like lonely islands spread across the world. So it's a very strange situation. In fact, I had a bunch of opening nights in my March-April period because I was opening the film in Poland. The film is called Valley of the Gods. It stars John Malkovich and Josh Hartnett and Keir Dullea from 2001 Space Odyssey, John Rhys Davies from Lord of the Rings. So nice cast. It's a sort of sweeping movie that I made, shot in Utah and in California and in Poland. And in March, I had a premiere in Poland in various cities. Then I was going to Italy for the opening night. Then I supposed to go to the Far East, which is Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. And then end of April, New York, and beginning of May, the opening of my film in United States. So it's really strange because nothing has materialized so far.
Do you have any idea in this situation when the American audience can expect to see this movie? I imagine first in the movie theaters and then maybe for online streaming. Is there any plans?
No, many films nowadays are not waiting for the opening of the theaters because nobody knows when it will happen. And also everybody expects that if it will happen, the theaters will be not populated. I mean, people will be worrying in going into theaters. I'm not talking, my film is like, let's say, not for the youngest audience. So I imagine that there would be a limited, very limited audience. In the first few months, the theaters will open. So most of the films, what I hear, are opening on various platforms. So my film will have a platform premiere on August 11th, I believe, in United States and Canada, and you know, the whole spread from Caribbeans to the Canada. So, but it's United States. It has a full-fledged distribution, but very strange was this theater openings. Nobody really knows how the business will look like, because this coronavirus, or this COVID-19, whatever it is, supposedly is not going away. That sort of is not a one period, few months thing. It's supposed to have waves, so it behaves like more in waves. Supposedly it comes in the fall, then who knows what will happen next year. I mean, the world has changed permanently, I believe.
Do you have any thoughts about it? I mean, we mentioned the theaters or maybe mass events. Probably people will, as you said, people will be afraid to participate in mass events, including cultural events. Anything else that you think can be different?
Everything will be different, I'm sure, because even the organizers, they will not want to risk that due to their lack of due diligence, somebody got sick or somebody died or something has happened or some sort of virus has spread out. I mean, you know, I'm trying to make jokes out of it because what can you do? You have to defend yourself. It used to be that people were saying that a flap of the wings of a mosquito in Amazon, somewhere over Amazon River, in sort of chain effect produces a tornado in Texas. Now a flap of the wings of a bat somewhere in China freezes the entire world. So the scale really got enlarged, and by far. So it's unbelievable how, and we don't know whether it's a flap of the wings of a bat or whether it's a lab-produced kind of a nasty thing that escaped by chance or was put on purpose. The ideas are flying around like flies. I mean, what has happened, nobody really knows. There are a lot of pointing fingers. Obviously, Chinese will never admit that anything went wrong, because it would open the door for enormous amount of litigations and fiscal responsibility, because I think the world is losing tons and tons and tons of money, and people's livelihood is really threatened. So if this would be the case, that for some reason there was a mastermind behind it, that would be enormous. But let's hope it's not.
Does this situation stimulate you in an artistic way? Can we expect to see any see it resonating in your works in the future? The situation, the pandemic, the chaos.
Well, no, I mean, art requires somehow the audience, and I believe that now it's going to be very difficult to get attention of people. It used to be very difficult, because I think that cinema became more like production of products, not films. I grew up on great films of Bergman, Fellini, Antonioni, the masterpieces of the cinema. And nowadays I see it's all product, which fills a certain category and is predictable. People don't want to see something new, challenging. They just want the comfort of falling into kind of a thoughtlessness. So I don't wear dark glasses, but I should. I mean, and I believe that art will suffer, of course, because well, we lost a lot of audience. I mean, I can even think of myself, of my film. I'm also in a different situation because over the last 4 years, a big publishing house here in Poland was putting out the entire collection of my prose, which is like 6 novels, 2 volumes of poetry, 3 volumes of my screenplays, altogether 15 volumes. So I didn't know that I actually wrote that much in my life. But there are 4 volumes of essays. And right now I am completing the last volume, which is called The Hidden Language of Symbols. And I travel the world with the lectures on this hidden language of symbols, because that's my passion, to read the underlying meaning of various symbols that appear in our life, or in art, or in architecture. I mean, it's all tied together, really, this archetypical language of symbols. So I'm putting all together the notes for this, and it takes most of my time right now. So I'd say it's a good time for me that I can concentrate. Very little is going on outside, so I can concentrate on this. I also, meanwhile, waiting on this, I shot a new film called Brigitte Bardot Forever, which is a feature film which I will be editing right now. So I am busy.
Let's move a little bit to the times before the pandemic. Mr. Majewski, in one of the interviews, you mentioned that for you, the life is like a journey between different countries, languages, and art genres. Indeed, you lived and worked in the UK, New York, Los Angeles, Venice. You are connecting with us from Poland right now, and also your artwork goes beyond any fixed borders. Can you tell me, how does it work for you? Do you follow your artistic inspiration, or you travel in search of them?
No, I would say very simply that we are geniuses when we are like around 19 or 20 or 21. And then it's the most formative period in our lives. It really imprints in our mind or in our soul what we really want to do, what are our obsessions, what is the shape of our soul. And some of us don't follow that route. Some of us are too scared to follow it. There are various ways in life people tend to give up some of their dreams, or make a compromise, or there are different obstacles that move them in a different direction. But I have to say I was fortunate enough to follow my ideas and my dreams from youth, and I keep realizing and giving shape to things that formed me a long time ago. So it's been a process. This is like coming from inside, and actually for this film, which is now coming out in United States, The Valley of the Gods, we are preparing a making of. There are interviews with Malkovich, Josh Hartnett, and even 2 days ago I listened to Josh Hartnett saying about his experiences on the set of Valley of the Gods, and he was saying, oh, we were all in Lech's mind. So we were like these figments of Lech's mind. So it was nice to say. But he said, it's a singular vision of this man, and we had to follow it. So it's not like every film that he's doing. So it was nice, but it's also truthful. I believe that whenever I'm doing things, whether it's art, sculptures, or video art, or films, or books, this is all the kind of an emanation of the inside. I am following my own road. I never did anything for to earn money or to have a commercial success. And it, obviously there are payments for that. I mean, you have a smaller audience because of this. You are not, your work is not that well known. But I cannot complain. I mean, I'm getting responses from all over the world.
I know that Josh Hartnett said that for him, working on this movie was like anything that he has done before. Can you tell us how was it for you, working with Josh Hartnett, with John Malkovich? How was shooting this movie for you? What kind of experience was it?
Well, I was happy that I'm working with such good actors. That's, of course, I mean, they are first-class actors, and they also very interesting personalities, because particularly Josh is an artist himself. I believe he's making movies right now as a director. John Malkovich is you don't need to explain who he is. I mean, he's taking on very unusual projects, and he is open-minded, and he's an artist also, truly an artist. I had this luck of working with Berenice Marlowe, who was the James Bond girl in one of James Bond movies, and Quantum of Solace. And she's an artist, so I was surrounded by artists. Keir Dullea, whom I admire, and who is this person whom I love from the Kubrick's 2001 Odyssey, said two most important films in his life was 2001 and The Valley of the Gods. And he said that he came to the set exactly to the day 50 years after he came to the set of 2001 Space Odyssey. It was nice. Actually, he was in Poland when he was having his 80th birthday, so we threw a big party in his honor. He's a fantastic person. I'm very lucky. I'm working with good people.
I think that they felt lucky working with you as well. And then on the other hand, in this movie, you contrast America's wealth with the life of Native Americans. Can you elaborate a little bit on why did you choose the Navajo Indians, one of the oldest American Indians tribe that is in danger of extinction, and how did you achieve to work with them?
Well, because Navajo culture is a fascinating culture. It's a very beautiful, very unique culture. I mean, if you read their mythology, it's like pure poetry. It's fantastic. I love the people there. I mean, they are the most interesting people. And the culture, and they live a very simple life, kind of a basic life without electricity, often without running water, often without any amenities. Yet they're very profound people, and the way they taught me how to look at the world, how to read the world, how to move about the world. It was a great school for me. I fell in love with Obviously it's a beautiful region as well. Visually stunning. I mean, all these locations out in South Utah is just, and the Navajo country is extremely beautiful place. But also people are very beautiful. And I needed to clash the ancient mythology, which is their culture, with our, let's put it, contemporary and futuristic mythology. We all are living in a different set of beliefs. We now believe very strongly in material and in money. So on the other hand, in my movie, here I have the Navajo people, but I also have the richest man in the world, played by John Malkovich, kind of a combination of various rich people, Jean-Paul Getty and a little bit of Gates, a little bit of everybody that is the richest person in the world. So he lives in this material world. They live in this spiritual world. And funnily enough, if you look at the map, these two worlds live together close by. It's a stone throw from Navajo country to the Silicon Valley. It's not that far away. I mean, it's a borderline. And you have this epitome of riches around it and real poverty inside America. And I'm saying poverty, unimaginable to people who didn't see. So the clash is, I always like to put this big diapason, this kind of a stretch, high and low, and between Navajo people and their culture and their country, and the richest contemporary person in the world, there is this tension which I explore in this film. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as you know, in the United States, the number of attempts to buy indigenous people land, because there are a lot of treasures hidden underneath, and everybody would like to dig it like a mole and get richer.
What was their reaction to the movie? Did they see?
It was fantastic, because those who saw the film said this is the first film shot through our eyes. It's not a white man's film, it's shot through our eyes. So it's the best thing I could hear. Because there's a lot of sort of magical realism in my movie. Those who know my films would know what I'm talking about. Actually, my last film that was in the United States was called The Mill and the Cross, which I entered into the painting of Peter Bruegel, The Way to Calvary. Rutger Hauer played Peter Bruegel, the painter from the 16th century, and Michael York played his sponsor, I mean the man who bought his paintings. There was Charlotte Rampling in this movie, and it got very good reviews in the States.
I saw this movie back in Poland when I used to live in Poland, and it made a huge impression on me. I know that you were working on this movie for about 3 years. Right. Can you tell us how did you achieve to bringing to life Peter Bruegel's painting in such a detail?
Well, it's a big work of a lot of people. It's like, actually I enter into this world of digital visual effects. And now digital visual effects are only used for this kind of comics. I call it pornography, where there are like zillions of things falling and exploding and massive effect after effect after effect until you become completely immune to the work of these effects. And I use those effects to recreate the world of Peter Bruegel and actually to enter his aesthetics, his philosophy, because he's among the painters the wisest philosopher. And also, it was like meeting with Bruegel in a way. You know? Sometimes when you make a film based on a real person, it's like having a spiritist seance. I produced a film called Basquiat. That was the debut of Julian Schnabel, and I wrote the screenplay for that film, the original story. And it felt like talking to Basquiat, who was at the time gone. And now I hear his paintings are the most expensive in the world. That's very unusual because he really was down and out when I met him, when he was alive.
Coming back to the mill and the cross, I imagine it's tons of people had to get involved in the making this picture. Can you elaborate a little bit on the process? On the
every part of this film, every shot in this film was combined of various layers. We thought initially that Bruegel, being a Renaissance artist, used a Renaissance perspective, which is akin to the lens in the camera, because it's like one perspective. But then when we started to analyze the perspectives in his painting, we figure out that there's at least 7 or 9 perspectives that are actually combines the various views from different angles into creating this world which is all visible to you. When we we made a lot of tests prior to the shooting. So I brought 2 buses of school children and I positioned them in positions that Bruegel has positioned the people. And when we shot it with a camera with different lenses, it all looked like bad television movie because the aesthetics and the perspective that has the lens has nothing to do with the real broken perspectives that Bruegel has used. So we figure out that we have to build each part of the frame with different shots and then assemble it together. And there are also layers because, you know, in order to create that world that to look like Bruegel painting, you have to literally have the opening shot was the biggest amount of layers. It was 147 layers to have it like a one single shot. So it was very, very, very complex. The minimum was like 7-8 layers that we had to put because we broke the usual perspective. And actually, it was very exciting. And for me, what was exciting also is that a lot of young people who are working on this film, I imagine that they will be bored to death but no, I discovered that this new generation is very patient. And once they see that something makes sense or is interesting, they are able to put themselves thoroughly they put their heart and their soul into this work. And I had this feeling, I did it in a studio called Odeon in Warsaw. And there's a long corridor. And in the evening, all the other rooms had this door open a little bit, some of them ajar, some of them a crack. But it's a dark corridor. And I walked through and I saw these people lit up by the light of the computers, how they were processing. And it came to me that they are doing, it's like illuminations, like, you know, in the manuscript, in ancient manuscript, the monks that were putting these little tiny pictures, these pictures are called illuminations. So they were doing contemporary version of illuminations and they were looking like monks. I was like a prior of that monastery that does the Bruegel's painting Way to Calvary.
Oh, and the final effect is breathtaking. It's amazing. Mr. Majewski, you were born in Katowice, and
Yes.
the city and the whole region of
This apartment in which I am right now.
Are you in Katowice right now?
Yes, this is my parents' house. They both are gone, but I got the apartment left, and I like it very much because I was physically born in this apartment. Mm-hmm. So the walls remember me, and I remember the walls and the view. So it's the, you know, when you travel a lot, you are always in these various places which are alien to you. But when you come to a place like this one, where I was physically born and all my youth was here, it's like internal space. I don't know, like I am inside a living organism.
Could you please elaborate a little bit on your hometown and on the years of your youth, and tell us how did they affect your further artistic choices?
Well, I grew up in, you know, what was called socialism or communism, or God knows what was this, but it was basically terror. So, and very black and white memory I have of my youth. But I did escape into my inner life. I had a very rich life. We all had very rich life because we read a lot of books. We were killing ourselves to get to a movie which was an interesting movie because the outside was so gray and depressing. People created inside them these gardens of books, of culture, of friendship. I mean, we were very friendly back then. Nowadays, it's not like this. People are living separate lives. They read very few books. And it's also very hard to find books because now is the ocean of books which is on the bookshelves. And mostly it's like Beckham, how he kicks the ball, or it's like how to become rich in 5 minutes, or how to avoid falling out of your car. I mean, you cannot buy good literature that easily as it was then. Because there's so much of the redundant culture nowadays, or I wouldn't call it a culture. It's just it's everywhere. It's in arts. I mean, if you go, there's zillions of galleries, and everywhere you have this similar kind of messed up kind of rubbish. Obviously, there are very interesting artists among them, but the majority is so bad, really. And the same goes for music, the same goes for films, and goes for the books. So very hard nowadays to navigate these waters of inner growth. To come across a book that will grab you and your spirit and your soul and will make you an imprint inside you for the rest of your life. Very hard. The same goes for the movies.
Do you think this diversity and the way how easy we can approach the art and the diversity of the art is not necessarily a good thing?
Well, look at this this way. I mean, if you go into Middle Ages and the Renaissance, you see basically masterpieces. There were very few artists, but yet the impact of what they were doing was enormous. And nowadays it's the opposite. It's like with the news, with everything. We are bombarded by redundancy. The 99% of the news we hear are redundant. They don't say anything. It's just this bombardment. So it's the explosion of information and implosion of meaning. it goes the opposite way.
How did your artistic perspective change through the years?
I was much more fascinated by contemporary art when I was young. But with the age, I grew to see through it, like meaningless of Warhol. I mean, I was fascinated by Warhol when I was like 19, 20, 21. I thought he captured something. But now I was in this huge exhibition of Warhol in Chicago, in the Art Institute of Chicago. And it was for me an exercise in emptiness. It's just, but it was crowded, zillions of people inside. So generally speaking, I am at awe more and more of the great creators of the past. I think we are unable to create things like that anymore. In music, in drama, in writing novels, in paintings, even in films. Because when you look at the Fellini movies and Tarkovsky and people like that, we don't have that type of scope anymore.
Is this why your movies are kind of a visionary pieces of art? They go far beyond any fixed genres. Is this because you don't want to? You're creating something new, something that hasn't been created yet?
It's hard for me to say this, but Lawrence Cardish, a senior curator at MoMA, who organized my retrospective at MoMA in New York in 2006, he thought it's a kind of oeuvre of a person who is a painter in contemporary days. And this exhibition went around the world because starting in Museum of Modern Art in New York, then it moved to Washington, D.C., to National Gallery, then to San Francisco, then to Chicago, to Seattle, then to Tokyo, then to Europe, then at Biennale in Venice. So it was interesting.
For your latest movie, Valley of the Gods, you not only directed the movie, but you also wrote the screenplay. Was it anything that surprised you, that appeared to be different on the stage of the production of the movie that you originally expected and thought while you were writing the script?
Well, writing of the script is, for me, since I'm going to be the director of this film, is for me like for a painter drawing a sketch. You basically think this is gonna be here, this is gonna be there, and so on. You know basically your vision. You know what you are after. But at the same time, since I am not only the director, but I also am director of photography, co-director of photography, because I do it with my friend Pavel Tibora, but I am also doing the sets, I'm involved in everything. In editing, of course, in sound, in every aspect of filmmaking. So I don't try to overly write these things. I try to leave room for powers above, because they like to come to the set and they change everything. And if you're good, you have to listen to them, because you cannot really fight them, because that's the worst you can do. You have to somehow. It's a navigation. It's the high seas, and you are keeping a steer in your hand, and you have to like choose the right direction, and you have to get to where you're going. But you can go this way or that way, or depend on the water, depend on the wind. And it's like on the set, you you know, actors have different moods. The weather can surprise you in many ways and sometimes can give you fantastic moments which you capture or not. For example, we were in this very dry desert, the high desert of these plateaus, mesas in Navajo country, which it's dust and dust and dust. You walk in clouds of dust. The car goes by just like a train of dust, enormous sort of billowing columns of dust. And suddenly there was this massive rain that came, and it was all over. And the entire crew ran after some sort of cover and umbrellas and tents that were put for the equipment. But I said, no, it's a miracle. We are in this high desert and yet this is rain. And I said, let's get out the camera out of this, let's shoot it. We shot it, and it's part of the movie, of course. And everybody's asking me, how do you get this amount of water into this very dry place? I had a very similar situation in Mill and the Cross, because at one point at 7 or 6 a.m., I heard a knock on the door of my room, and the production manager came and said, listen, today you can sleep because it's such a fog that you cannot see your hand. It's an immense fog. I said, no, we're going to the set and we shoot the fog. So everybody thought I'm crazy and I'm kind of terrorizing the crew that wanted to sleep and relax. But we went to the set, we put the camera out, it was really like a milk. And suddenly the horses with the soldiers, Spanish soldiers, were coming our direction because they were living in a different place where the stables could be for the horses. And they didn't know, they didn't get a message that it's like over because of the, so they were coming and we recorded that moment, incredible moment in the movie. And I remember, was it in New York or in Montreal that somebody said, how did you get this fantastic fog? I mean, what type of smoke did you use to get this amazing fog? And I said, well, we got this very expensive special effect man from Australia. He knows the trick.
Mr. Majewski, coming to the end, I would like to ask you, what are your next professional plans? What will be your first destination after the lockdown is lifted?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know when the lockdown will end, and depends on it. And there are various places that want to open my movie. I see how it really falls into place. But generally speaking, I have to open my movie Valley of the Gods. I'm also in the process of publishing this last book, The Hidden Language of Symbols. And I have to complete the Brigitte Bardot Forever, my new film. So it will take me, it's a stretch.
I would like to thank you very much for meeting with us today at the Kosciuszko Foundation's online program. We hope to see you very soon here in the US with your new movie, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. All the best to you.
Thank you.